better, but keep your momentum.
And you've been able to hold on to that pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I had a teacher when I was in college at the University of Florida named Harry Cruz, and his repeated piece of advice is write every day, even if it's only for 15 minutes. Don't take any weekends off. Don't take any days off. Write every day. If you're going to be a writer, you have to write every day. And that what he was saying is you never want the story to get away from your head. You always want to be thinking about your story, and that feeds into momentum and so forth. And for a long time, I employed that. I wrote every single day. But now, I don't know whether I'm getting lazy or something, but what I usually do is write every day while I'm in a draft. I begin that draft, and I will write every day, sometimes if it's only for 15 minutes until I get to the end of the draft. But then I take breaks, and I will not write, and I'll think about it, and I'll try to clear my head sometimes of what I'm writing and then come back to it. So I can't say I write 365 days a year, but there was a time in my life when I certainly did.
I can definitely see where some of your toughness came along if you were a student of Harry Cruz.
It was a good experience. I mean, I wish I had more classes with him. I signed up for ones that he didn't show up for, got beat up and wasn't able to teach and so forth. But he was an inspiring character because he is a character. I can't say other than that write every day, even if it's only for 15 minutes. That obviously has stayed with me, but I don't remember other aspects of what he taught as staying with me, but I certainly remember him as a larger-than-life character in the classroom and walking across campus. I can still remember seeing him. I'm going back, real far, 30 years or so, and still remember seeing him and the way he carried himself and so forth. And I was thinking, man, that's what a writer's like, and that was really impressive to me.
That would be a tough man to try to live up to his life.
He was, well, I mean, he's, I remember one, I mean, I don't know if we have enough time to tell the story, but one time he was signing his books at a store where my mother was living, and I had been published and gotten some pretty good reviews, so she waited in line and proudly told him, my son, who was one of your students, it just got published and he's doing real well. And he goes, really, who is it? And then she said, Michael Connelly. He goes, I don't remember him. And and that's like the joke part. But then he had a movie come out last year based on one of his books, and with the extras on the DVD was a interview with him, and he's interviewed in his home office, and right on the shelves behind him I see a bunch of my books. So he either didn't remember me or he was just playing around for whatever, but he at least got my books in the long run.
So you mentioned the next book has Jack McAvoy as the character, and could you refresh us again on the plot and when it's supposed to be coming out?
It's called The Scarecrow, or I should say the working title is The Scarecrow, because I literally turned it in about 2 weeks ago. And it's slated to come out May 26th or late May. And it's about his last week as a reporter. The news business is going through a terrible downturn, and almost every newspaper in the country is cutting jobs, and in cutting jobs in the newsroom, you're making your content less what it was. And the LA Times, where I worked for 7 years, is not the paper it was even a year ago, but let alone 10 years ago. And it's kind of sad to see, and ultimately the community is ill-served by this. But it's a dilemma. They're not getting the advertising and so forth. And so anyway, this has led to a lot of pressure on the news business. And the story is essentially about, starts with Jack being called into the managing editor's office and laid off, given a pink slip. And but he's allowed to stay for 2 extra weeks if he trains his replacement, who is somebody just out of school who makes less than half of what he was making and knows less than half of what he knows about covering crime in Los Angeles. And that's in a microcosm is what is happening. The expensive reporters and writers who have a skill and knowledge of their subject matter are getting ousted for newer people who are don't have the experience, and therefore the community is not getting all they should get out of the newspaper. Anyway, so Jack takes that deal as even though it doesn't give him much dignity, and it's about what he does in his last 2 weeks.
Well, we're all very much looking forward to Scarecrow when it comes out next spring. I'm sorry, but we're all out of time for Book Talk today, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, we really appreciate your coming on. Michael Connelly is the author of The Brass Verdict, which is published by Little Brown. I'm Stephen Ussery, and this is Book Talk.